Okay, guys, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and the Galilee. Today's the 27th of May, and it's Tuesday. It's 8:22 in the morning. What we're going to cover today is what's going on with the Egyptian army and a strength of over 100,000 on the border with Israel, right under Gaza and in the Sinai Peninsula, violating the Camp David Accord treaties, which the Americans are supposed to enforce. And why is the Muslim media telling us that Egypt's declaring war on Israel? It's going to be over Gaza. And is this why Netanyahu called up 450,000 reservists to fight against a force of 30,000 in Gaza, which is stupid? In addition, there's probably at least 150,000 regular soldiers involved. I'll be right back. So why is all this happening? I'll be right back. So that's basically what we're going to cover today, and we're going to discuss why maybe we could see this as a reason why, when we read Malachi 3 and 4 and we read Zechariah 12, we don't read anything about the Israeli army or the government of Israel operating or anything like that. So we're going to take a look at this and see where it takes us. Okay, I'm going to go into the live stream. Make sure we got a live stream. And we got sound and picture. Put a post or two up and move on. I'm going to go into the live stream. Make sure we got a live. We've got that going. Okay, I don't know. People are coming in. I don't see the moderators yet, but I imagine they'll be here. I'm going to get a post up real quick. Got a typo, don't it? Hang on a minute. Make sure I got this up good. Yep. Okay. So, we have a moderator here. Great. Okay, I'm going to do some praise, being a Bible believing site, Old and New Testament, and then we'll proceed. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. So I'm going to start off with a very interesting news story that was very obscure and hard. I just kind of came across it by accident, and it fits in here. Let me get it and read it to you. Oh, first we got some prayer requests. Okay. I have two. One is for J.N. Jack Normandy. J.N. Jack Normandy. Prayer request for healing for J.N. Next is for D.S. Delta Sierra D.S. Delta Sierra D.S. Healing from a back injury and relief from pain. For D.S. Healing from a back injury and relief from pain. Okay. A naval group consisting of the British aircraft carrier Prince of Wales, accompanied by additional warships from Canada, Norway, and Spain, and under the defensive cover of two American destroyers, is now sailing to the Red Sea, and from there south. Now, I don't know what does that mean. They're coming through the Mediterranean, likely. It could be headed towards the Indian Ocean. They could be going in the Mediterranean, then down the Red Sea, come out under Yemen and go over to the Indian Ocean. And that's a guess, but I don't think it's a good guess. I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking it's getting into the Red Sea as a threat to Egypt. That's what I'm looking at here. Because if they traverse through the Red Sea underneath Yemen and near Yemen, they're probably going to get shot at, or they likely can get shot at, or who knows. The Houthis might say, oh, they're coming to attack us and strike them. I don't know. I don't think they're doing that. I don't think they would endanger their ships going by the Houthis like that. So, a few months ago, Egypt violated the Camp David Accords, and they started building military embankments, forts, houses, housing, barracks, and defensive postures right underneath Gaza and Sinai Peninsula over the Israel border. And they put over 100,000 soldiers in there with tanks and armor. And they greatly exceeded the amount of military that the Camp David Accord Treaty allows for them. So they're in grievous violation. And Israel is sort of ignoring it, right? Well, what we should say is Israel is not talking about it to the public in Israel because they don't want to create more panic, okay? So why would Netanyahu call up 450,000 reservists to go into Gaza and fight 30,000 busted up Hamas terrorists that are basically reduced to carrying AK-47s and precious little anything else? And they can't hold up against the aircraft, the tanks, the artillery. It's impossible. Okay, so why would he call so many? Because of Egypt. He's trying to make a show of force so Egypt doesn't attack. Now, Egypt's been getting advanced weapons from the Chinese, including those advanced fighter jets that Pakistan had that he used to take down. Pakistan took down 3 Raphael jets with. Now, a Raphael jet is not an advanced F-35. It's not anywhere near as good, and I don't believe it's that stealthy or anything else. So it doesn't mean the Chinese aircraft is going to take down F-35s, but it's probably rather effective against F-16s and F-15s. Okay? It's not a 5th generation, it's a 4.5. So it might have a little stealth capability, not much. The advantage of this jet is it can shoot air-to-air missiles at very high speed at distances that are greater than what other jets have. So they have an option of attacking another jet at a range where the jet being attacked can't retaliate. Now, we saw, let me give you an analogy, in World War II, like Britain and America had destroyers or cruisers, light cruisers, destroyers, and they had heavy cruisers, and these boats typically had several 5-inch guns and some 8-inch guns, okay? And they were going up against Japanese and German heavy cruisers and big destroyer battleships type boats, and they were running around with 16 and 18-inch guns. So they had a much greater range than the 5 and the 8-inch guns. So when the Japanese or German vessel with the 16 and 18-inch guns picked up Allied warships, they would start firing at them at a distance, a range was greater than what the Allied ship could fire back at them and hit them. In other words, the Allied ships with their 5 and 8-inch guns were out of range. So they had to get closer to, say, the German or Japanese battleship that had the big guns. So they had to close the distance to counterattack while they were being aimed at with very large weapons. So if one of these were 16, 18-inch guns, was like a 2,000-pound explosive. If it hit the destroyer, it was over. A lot of people would get killed, and the chances are the boat would sink. It maybe would sink in 2 or 3 minutes, which is very fast. They generally don't sink in 10 seconds, Or it might sink in 5 or 8 minutes or in a half hour or something like that. But it would kill a lot of people and injure a lot of people. It was a devastating thing. Now, America had battleships that had 16-inch guns that had 9 of them, and they would be rather potent against the Japanese or German warships with the big guns too. because they could return the fire at about the same range, you know. So the way the Allied lighter ships would have to handle this is they would need several of them, like two or three, and then they would attempt to get closer to the German or Japanese ship with the big guns, and they would start attacking at different angles and stuff like that and overwhelm it. But it was a very lethal encounter because if the Germans or the Japanese got one hit on a ship with those guns, it would be over. Now, when you were hitting the big German or Japanese ship with a 5-inch or an 8-inch gun and you hit it, it wasn't curtains for them. Okay, yeah, guys would get killed. They probably had fires. They'd have breakdown of equipment and things in the boat, but they generally could survive maybe even 3, 4, or 5 such hits. So they, depending where the hits were, so they would have to keep pelting them, you know. So that's what the deal with this advanced Chinese jet is. It works with this air-to-air missile, and I don't believe it's effective against an F-35. Okay. So we know Egypt's going to turn, okay, on Israel, and they go into a 40-year diaspora. Then they return as a very meek nation, the least of nations, and they serve Jehovah, along with Assyria and Israel, the three. Because there was a time when Israel was sent to Egypt for punishment, and they were treated okay, you know. It was towards the end when it was time for them to come out that they were being treated badly. Okay. We know the Nile River is going to dry up, which is Egypt, right? And people are going to cross dry shod. And now there's talk of Israel can attack I think it's called the Aswan Dam that Egypt has and flood Egypt. Now let's take a little, I haven't looked this up yet. Let me take a better look at this Aswan Dam. It's used for hydroelectric, so they're making electricity out of this. It's built across the Nile. So if they did hit the Aswan Dam, it might cut the flow off in the Nile. I'm not sure on this, though. This I don't know. I'm digging here, though. It's their only dam in Egypt, so it's super important to them. It's probably the case that if you attack this dam, you're going to affect the Nile, because the Nile feeds it. But Israel may not do it, Jehovah may do it. It's actually the world's longest artificial lake, the Aswan Dam. Its length is 500 kilometers, like 300 miles, and its width is 16 kilometers, or a little under 10 miles. So that's quite a big lake. It definitely has something to do with the Nile River, and it could be an attack by Israel, it could be something by Jehovah. If it dries the Nile up, then the Aswan Dam's not gonna, it could dry up, or maybe it gets broken and then it's dry. I don't know. We don't have any great details on that. We know people will walk dry shod over it. So Egypt's in this. And the Muslim media is saying that Egypt is basically getting ready to go to war with Israel, and it would be over Gaza. Egypt's been nasty to Israel and allowed for many years the smuggling of weapons and tunnel making equipment and supplies into Gaza. I would figure they probably allowed 5 to 10,000 tractor trailer truckloads to come in over the years. You got to understand, maybe even more, and that's just a massive amount. And it's ludicrous to say that Egypt had no idea this was going on. Of course, they knew it was going on, and at the same time, they're negotiating with Israel on behalf of Hamas, and Netanyahu's dumb enough to play into it, or mean and evil enough, or opposed to us enough, he played into it. So that's the best explanation I have for the to 450,000 reservist soldiers being activated to fight 30,000 broken down Hamas in Gaza, hiding in hospitals, tunnels, houses, building, it's ridiculous. So why hasn't Egypt done it so far? Well, it's not Jehovah's timing would be my first guess at this. Okay? And they've also got problems because they're worried about what will Israel do to them. Israel jets can attack them voraciously. You know? There's a chance that the Houthis, have mobilized their soldiers up through Africa into Egypt and are going to help them, but I doubt that, because the Egyptians and the Houthis are at odds with each other for the closing of the Red Sea. I don't think they'd let them in their country. And they don't need them. So, as Netanyahu's progressing towards his final phase in Gaza, he's bringing a huge amount of soldiers in there. This could leave Israel poorly defended on other borders, but not that poorly. And Egypt might be waiting for the soldiers to get put in so they have them all in one place and they can try to wipe the army out. Which is not so easy. Egypt doesn't have the most advanced tanks, and they got decent artillery and mortars, you know. Their aircraft, by and large, are not that crackerjack, but dangerous. Their air defense systems won't work against F-35s. So I'm really looking at this and I'm saying this is the only explanation that this part of the siege is about to come in. Now, since America has a treaty with Israel to defend them and enforce this Camp David Accord, that could explain the warships moving towards the Red Sea, which I think they're in the Mediterranean. And when you go to approach the Red Sea, that's where the hot spot is with Egypt over there. Okay. So a British aircraft carrier and several warships is problematic for Egypt. There's still an American aircraft carrier here too, so they could attack Egypt also. Plus, America has a number of aircraft in the Middle East that could, with refueling tankers, go attack Egypt as well. Plus, we don't know what other warships America may have positioned, like submarines, to attack Egyptian Navy ships. Turkey could help Egypt. They could reasonably get along for that if Turkey decides to do that, which it very likely will. So as, you know, we're approaching this, and the Muslim media is saying that the Egyptians intend to use chemical and biological weapons on Israel, meaning the soldiers. So China could have given them, I'm just guessing, they could have given them some really good biological chemical weapons and they could unload those on the Israeli soldiers, but that's kind of dangerous because they would kill the Gazans. The other thing we could also take a look at is if Israel is these 450,000 plus 150, 160,000 regulars there, or so in Gaza, Iran could pelt down missiles all over Gaza, killing many Gazans, tens of thousands, and killing the Israeli army. And they would, if they did something sick like this, they would just attribute it to, well, we made them martyrs, and we stopped the Zionists. And, you know, it's a possibility, not a likely one, but it could happen. We don't, it would be unprecedented, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Egypt could try to roll into Israel and Gaza at the same time. They would try to go into Gaza and defend Gaza from within, and then possibly go up into Israel in the south and try to defend Gaza from outside Gaza, but I doubt that. There's no other good explanation. Now, there's a slight chance that Egypt is just worried about something, and that's why they put the soldiers in there. But based on Netanyahu's reaction and these mysterious warships moving around, I don't think that's the case. So what is Egypt waiting for? I don't know. Maybe their goal is to make sure that Trump doesn't export the Gazan civilians and turn it into a gambling casino haven in Gaza. So Egypt might have plans of just sitting still while Egypt, while Israel wipes out Gaza, as long as they just keep the humanitarian aid going to the civilians and don't run them out of Gaza, Egypt might just say, "Who the heck cares?" I mean, Hamas is walking dead. We're not going to be able to resurrect them. Israel's going to stay there and not let the weapons get smuggled in. So who cares about Hamas? Let them wake up and surrender and just leave Gaza. And then if Israel just leaves the people there, we'll leave it alone. But if Israel's going to try to deport the people, we don't want that. We don't want that. Because if Trump's going to build a gambling casino resort, duty-free zone community there, it's going to be right on their border, and they may see fit to put a military in there to protect it. And that's right on the border of Egypt. So I'm not sure. Everything is up in the air. But it looks scary. I mean, Netanyahu is definitely responding to it. I mean, I could see if he called 20, 30, 40,000 reservists up, but not a call like this for a busted out group of terrorists that are hanging on by their fingernails. I'll be right back. So let's play with other scenarios. Maybe America plans on attacking Iran, or Israel will start it more likely. And they're bringing these warships positioned near Egypt to be a deterrent towards Egypt. Because if Egypt starts sinking Norway ships and American and British, well, that's NATO doing a tap dance on Egypt's head. Okay? No, that's not any fun. Maybe these warships are really going to the Indian Ocean to get ready for Iran. Or maybe they're there in reserve, so if Israel attacks Iran, then they could, hit it in harder. They're not that worried about Egypt, but I don't know. I don't know what's up with that. It's very interesting. It would either be, I mean, there's an outside chance it's Yemen, the Houthis. Okay, outside chance. Heavy chance it's Egypt, and heavy chance it's Iran. Now, there could be concerns America would want Israel to hit Iran first, and then when Israel gets the blowback from Iran, Egypt may see a good weak moment and start attacking Israel. not so much working with Iran, because I don't think they're that close, but taking advantage of the situation. So a bunch of warships there would stop it. Because if Egypt attacks those warships, well, I mean, you're going to see B-2s, B-52s, you're going to see everything come down on Egypt's head. Okay? Egypt is not as insane as Iran, but these are end times, and they can be rather insane. Satan is trying to stop the wars left, right, and center. You see constant, perpetual, never-ending ceasefire talks, and they don't work out. But he keeps trying. He's trying to stop them. He's scared of the wars. Okay? Scared. But he wants the wars against Israel. He wants to try to knock out Israel. Okay? The fight with Egypt could be a reason why we read in Jeremiah 50:51 there appears to be American troops in Israel doing evil in our sight. It could be a result of that. Do I think Netanyahu would do a preemptive strike against Egypt and say you violated this, I'm attacking you? Nah. Egypt's not actively doing anything to Israel right now. The Houthis are, Gaza is, and Iran is by backing the Houthis and other groups. So Israel's priorities would not be Egypt right now. And Netanyahu may be planning on just dismantling Hamas, okay, and getting them out of there, and then telling the Gazans, if you want to leave, leave. If you don't want to leave, you're not going to leave. And Egypt may just leave that alone. Egypt's comfortable with the Gazans next door to them. They would not be comfortable with Trump owning Gaza, and then America and Israel would combine to defend it, and that's probably going to be putting military inside there and putting ships in the coast, and that's not going to make Egypt feel warm and mushy inside, This could also be working with China and maybe even Russia for a knife prodding the back of Israel. If Israel attacks Iran, Egypt's going to attack Israel. And that could have been told to Netanyahu, and he's not passing it on. And this could all have something to do with Trump delaying the attack on Iran, because the negotiations are the theory absurd. They don't even have any new ones scheduled, and Trump is saying, oh, I think we'll have a good deal with Iran. Well, they're not even talking anymore, and he's saying stuff like that. So it might be to position ships and military and get ready for a scenario with Iran and Egypt. Okay? Now, is there a chance that this just blows over? It's a chance. But there's also a chance it doesn't. We gotta watch. I'll keep feeding you information as I get it. The fleet of ships that I believe was taken out of Arab media, but it came from a very reliable source. It wasn't, the person I got it from was pretty good and doesn't make stupid, big, gross mistakes like this. So I don't think it's bogus. And there has to be a good reason why it's going on. Let's see what's in the live stream. Yeah, we're well aware of Zechariah 14, but are you well aware of the timing on that? Do you know how to interpret the timing? Let me help you. And maybe you know this already, I don't know, but you didn't mention it. Because Zechariah 12 and 13 precedes Zechariah 14. It starts out, behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and that is Gog and Magog. That's not Zechariah 12, that's not Malachi 3 and 4. So yes, it will happen. Okay, but if you really want to learn the whole truth about that, you would also read Ezekiel 8 to 11, which I don't think you know about, and that too has to come to pass, including in Ezekiel 9, putting God's mark in the foreheads of those that are grievous over the injustices done in Jerusalem, and nothing shall harm them, and they don't have to leave Jerusalem. Which you see here in verse 2, it says, the houses rifled, the women ravished, raped, half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. See, so if you read Ezekiel 8 to 11, you'll understand that specifically, verse 9, chapter 9. Okay. So it is a good call, but you have to learn the sequencing of these end times events. I don't understand why Netanyahu will not permit his citizens to own weapons. Well, they are allowed, but it's very, very tight to get them. If you live in the West Bank, you can get them rather easily. Okay? But he's been anti-gun, probably because he's afraid of getting overthrown. And he makes it very, very hard for people to get guns. And if he let the people have guns in the South, like what went on before Netanyahu was cursing us with his prime ministerships, which has been over 20 years, the October 7th massacre never would have happened because everybody was running around with guns. They had military rifles that belonged to the military, but they were able to use them and check them out and keep them. And they bought pistols. So these people in October 7th had guns and they were swarming the houses and the people were unarmed. And that's due to Netanyahu's idiocy of gun control. And the people of Israel never woke up and called them out on that as much as they should have. So he's a very, very bad person, a very bad leader and a very bad person. I don't know what kind of advice you're asking me to share. I have a feeling most of you people will wish you never heard the name Trump before the end of the summer. I don't think I have any other questions. Somebody said something about 7 churches. I don't know. If you have a question, what is it? Uh, okay. So when we go into Malachi 3, which also has to come to pass, we read, "Behold, I will send my Malach, my messenger," that's Elijah, "and he shall prepare the way before me. And Adonai, whom you seek, shall suddenly come to his temple." So there will be a temple, and the temple arrives first before the glory of God of Israel goes into the temple. Um, Even the messenger of the covenant, whom you delight in, that's back to Elijah, they delight in him, they think he's going to come teach them Torah, and he will. And they set place settings for him on Passover Seder, pour him a glass of wine. They have chairs with his name on it. They even leave the door open if it's safe for him to come in. This is all fiction. It's nothing based on the Bible. That's their tradition. "Behold, he shall come." So the Lord's saying Elijah will come, saith Jehovah of hosts. "But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand?" Now the word for coming is what? Bo. It means come. It means come. The day he comes, I think, is maybe a little more accurate. I don't know. "And who shall stand when he appeareth?" And the word for appeareth is ra'ah. It's not exactly. I guess appear would work. Um, but who may abide the day of his coming, and who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire and like a fuller's soap, and he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, the Levites, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto Jehovah an offering in righteousness. Then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant unto Jehovah, as in the days of old, as in former years. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sons, against the sorcerers, the adulterers, the witches, and the dead ones. Okay. So we see all this, and we don't see the government of Israel. Now let's go to Zechariah 12. What don't see the army, we don't see anything. Now, Zechariah 12 is rather helpful. Zechariah 12 is really Malachi 4, basically, which shows you the appearing and the people jumping out, getting everlasting life, and jumping out of the stall like a baby calf. The burden of the word of Jehovah for Israel, saith Jehovah, which stretcheth forth the heavens, and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. Well, that's the land we have now. He doesn't refer to us as Israel because the 10 tribes aren't here and we don't have all the land yet. That he gave us by covenant in Genesis 15. By covenant, I said. The Hebrew word is brit, covenant. All right, so God doesn't break covenants. So we do have a siege going on now, but it's going to get more enhanced, okay? And in that day, a siege is not an invasion. You surround them and you attack them and stuff. You could blockade them also. A blockade doesn't involve attacks. It just involves stopping things and people from coming in and going out, okay? A siege is surrounding and attacking, okay? It also has the effect of a blockade because the military is surrounding the country, so how is stuff getting in and out, you know? And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. So they wind up getting cut in pieces, which would be Roman sword talk for sliced and diced, dead, you know. All the people of the land, it doesn't say earth, it could mean earth, it could mean land, gathered together against it. I think it's the surrounding countries that are squatting in Greater Israel, including Egypt and stuff. That's what I think it means. In that day, because if all the nations that come against Israel get wiped out, it was all the nations of the whole world. There wouldn't be any left for Gog and Magog down the road or anything. You know? In that day, saith Jehovah, I will smite every horse with astonishment and his rider with madness, and I will open my eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. Where's the military? The Israeli military, it's not here. And the governors of Judah, that really means judges. Those are the two witnesses, judges of prophets. We got 2 prophets coming, Enoch and Elijah. They're the judges. Isaiah 1 explains God's going to run Israel with judges like he did at the first, which were Moses and Aaron. They were judges, they were prophets. The 2 witnesses, Enoch and Elijah, judges and prophets. Similar, and they'll have the 70 counselors also, like Moses and Aaron, and Isaiah 1 points that out too. And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength. It's really saying the inhabitants of Jerusalem's strength is in the Lord of hosts, their God. In that day will I make the judges of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf, and they shall burn up all the people round about on the right hand and on the left hand, and Jerusalem shall remain still even in her own place in Jerusalem. Okay? So, we don't see the army, the military, the government of Israel in operation here. We just see the judges. So there's some transition here, okay? Where the judges, the two witnesses, are running Israel, not the government. So what happened? How did that come to pass? We don't know. When the two witnesses start working, does the government just stand down to them and say, you're in charge? There's a chance that happens. I don't think a big chance, but it could be. Could it be the military and the government got wiped out and then the two witnesses step in? I'm not so sure that's the case either, because I believe preceding the two witnesses burning the enemies up, that Elijah is training the Levites to make the offerings acceptable unto the Lord, which means the temple's here, I would think, or maybe the tabernacle, but probably the temple. I'm guessing, but I think so. And then, if you read Ezekiel 37, the last three verses, you'll realize that that temple gets put here by Jehovah. It comes down from heaven. It's the house not made with hands, because the glory of God of Israel lives in it. And I believe that when the Levites get get cleaned up by Elijah, in other words, their doctrine gets straightened out and stuff like that, then the offerings are acceptable unto the Lord. Then the blessings of the law come on Israel. Okay? You could read Deuteronomy 28, I think, 28, 29, and learn about that. And that's, I think, when we see the two witnesses burning the enemies up, that's part of the blessings of the law. And the military's not here, nor is the government doing anything. So it's unlikely to me that the government would just decide, okay, we're not going to, we're going to step down and let the two witnesses run Israel. Well, they're not going to do that. They're going to say, we're the real government, we got the votes, nonsense like that. People trying to outvote God, right? So, is it likely the two witnesses get rid of the government of Israel? It's a possibility. We see it happen in Malachi 4. The bad ones, the government, the rabbis, the Messianic congregation, teachers and leaders and stuff like that, the witches, the sorcerers, the crooks, and they're going to go. But they're not the military nor the government. The government are the bad shepherds in Ezekiel 34, and they get it. So it's a pretty good, tough thing to figure out. It is. It's very difficult. But we have to take into account why the two witnesses are doing it, not the military. I don't think the military's there. When God gets Israel the land back and rescues Israel, it's going to be unequivocally 101% crystal clear that God did it. Having two guys that came down from heaven, Enoch and Elijah, have fire come out of their mouth and burn all the enemies up round about. Now the fire could be lightning also. Same word could mean lightning. And if you get hit with lightning, you're going to burn up, All right. So, is going to absolutely point the people towards heaven, towards Jehovah. That's not a normal situation. And the two witnesses will, of course, talk about that. So then I put it together with Egypt, and I start wondering what's really going on, right? I'll be right back. It's an interesting dilemma, and we may never really understand exactly what's going to happen until it happens. Oh, so we know Yemen's going to be destroyed, like leveled, and we know Israel's going to keep the remnant, those that survived, as their possession, which would mean slaves. Now, do we know 101% that will happen before redemption? I couldn't give you a guarantee that it's before redemption. It could be after we have everlasting life. Now, we know Iran is going to get it. It's called Elam in Jeremiah 49. And it can, according to some historians, include Iraq and Syria or parts thereof. And they get busted out so bad that they scatter into every nation in the earth. And there the sword follows them and they get cut off. And, well, if it happens after redemption, it's probably previous to Jeremiah 30, verse 11, when God destroys all the nations he scattered the Israelites into. That's probably going to happen on the day of vengeance. So it is a challenge and a half to try to get the sequence and timing of this right, because it tells us in Jeremiah 50:51, we're going to be doing fighting. Israel, redeemed. We're going to fight against many nations, and we're going to get our land back, and we're going to conquer a lot of people. But it also appears that there's going to be things happening before our redemption. But does Zechariah 12:6, where they burn the enemies up, does that happen pre or post redemption? Or is that the day of vengeance also? It's very difficult to get this down. It really is. I don't think the way the Bible is written as we have the Bible, there are, of course, books missing out of the Bible. The Bible itself tells us that. But I think there's 21 books named in the Bible as Bible that we don't have, you know. And there's extra biblical books that look like they're pretty good too, you know. Now, Enoch is an interesting extra biblical book, and what Enoch says is kind of, I've been trying to ponder this. I have to go back and reread it. I haven't read it in years. What Enoch says is the demons are the children that resulted when the angels laid up with the women pre-flood, right? And they resulted in the giants, and then the giants were dominating the world and making everybody feed them and take care of them and all that stuff. And that's how demons are to this day. And as a punishment against the angels that did this, God banned, or I don't know, banned or whatever, these dead spirits of the children that were the product of the angels laying up with the women, which never was supposed to be. He gave them no rest, and they just wander around as spirits in the earth working as demons. Now, the angels would be their fathers, basically, although I believe those specific angels wound up with a special confinement place, but the other angels are probably the powers of the air and the ones that run the countries and stuff like that. Now, it's a very complicated thing to try to put this together. A third of the angel, there's millions of angels, so if a third of them were thrown out, it's probably at least, what, 1 million, 2 million, I don't know. So that's a lot of angels running around, right? And then how many offspring did these angels create? We don't know. Now, Enoch also tells us that these product of the angels laying up with the women were sterile. They couldn't reproduce. So life lasted a long time before the flood, hundreds and hundreds of years. So I don't know. They couldn't reproduce from Enoch, but they lasted a long time, apparently. Now, the angels, I believe, also laid up with animals, and that's why you see images in Egypt, pyramids and stuff, of a man with the head of a raven or a hawk or falcon or something like that. Another would be a man with the head of a fish. And they got sphinxes with like a man lion. And see, I believe these were real things, and they wouldn't be able to reproduce, but they would. Um, they probably existed. I don't understand why the Egyptians would have created images of them unless they saw them. And if it never happened, why would the demons, lead the Egyptians into making a big deal out of these things? If it never happened, it didn't make sense. So I think it really did happen. So we don't know how many demons there are. I do know that there's people that serve the unclean spirits without having a demon in them. They probably want one, but they don't have one. And I know that if you toss the demons out of some of these people repeatedly over and over again, the demons will stop coming into them for a spell anyway. And they don't like that. And then if you block the unclean spirits from communicating to them or appearing to them or helping them or guiding them or leading them or directing them for a year or two or whatever, and not being that the demons cannot use other people either to help these people, well, then they're going to go for the Johnny Walker, the Jim Beam, the Valentine beer, the wine, the Prozac, the Zoloft, the Valium, the whatever, they go nuts. These people don't have faith that serve the unclean spirits. They don't have any faith. So they cave in easy. If Elijah and Enoch start working openly, would that change the face of the earth? Would that change everything? Oh, yeah, in spades. When was the last time there was a man of God running around doing amazing miracles on the earth? Well, about 2,000 years ago. His name is Yeshua HaMashiach. So they're going to do amazing miracles too. Rising the dead, the healing, everything, the whole bit. More than what Yeshua did. Yeshua said, greater works than these you shall do. And then everybody's going to get real scared about Israel, won't they? The temple comes down, 2 witnesses are working, the Levites are training. They're going to go nuts, aren't they? And that might be when they put the siege on Israel. But where's the government? Where's the military? And see, this is not clearly disclosed. So pray we get some answers about this, okay? We know what's going to happen in terms of the 2 witnesses in the temple and all that, and the glory of God Israel. But we don't know is who, what, where, when, how, why the government and the military are not around. What's the timing and the sequencing, and how does that come to pass? We don't have that. We don't always need it either, because we know that it's going to culminate with the 2 witnesses running Israel, with the 70 counselors, and the glory of God of Israel, and Apostle John, and the 2 witnesses. We know all this. Well, we don't know all the timing and stuff of it. That we don't know. We got a good idea of the timing, but when does the military go? Well, what happens to the military? Do the 2 witnesses disband them? Do they submit? I don't see it. The battle is not being fought by the government or the military of Israel. And if they were still in existence, why would they just sit still? I don't know. It's possible, but I don't think so. I don't know what the deal is, guys. Do I have scriptures that make me think that God's going to eliminate 6, 7, 800,000 members of the military? No. I don't have a scripture for that. Does he get rid of the military of the world? Yeah. Could he be including Israel into that? It's a possibility, but I'm not sure. So I wish I could come and give you definitive, absolute timing on this, but then the enemy would know it too. So this is what we got to deal with now. Let me take a look at the live stream. But something's going to happen in the coming days to change everything. Big time. And it may not be a war. It might be. It may not be. It could be the 2 witnesses working openly. That would certainly do the job. Oh yeah, that would do the job. There's not that many people going to see this, watch this video. This is really more for us, people that understand what's going on. It's not for the world, you know. Well, I guess that's what I was going to cover today. Pray we get more insight, but it looks like the government and the military's not around at this point. And Zechariah 12 is already in play. It's not in its fullness yet, so time's very short. So please pray for me. Pray for peace, safety, protection, joy, healing. Pray for my finances. Pray for the animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole. Pray for my wife, and pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and that I can make better videos. The Lord gives me more, I can make more videos. I put offering information up in the chat, and it's in the description box. It would be nice if I started seeing some more offerings. It's been dry for quite a few days, although I get a couple of offerings here and there. And I send my my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I hope you got something out of this. And pray for our birds and dogs that are all rescues, that they be happy, healthy, and whole. B'Shem, that's it. And I thank you guys, and I'm out.